Welcome everybody to this week's One Piece episode review. Now this episode was 691, The Second Samurai, Evening Shower Kanjuro Appears. And basically it's a very simple episode as usual. We at the palace, the new location of the palace, we see the Coliseum fighters still clashing with the Don Quixote pirates in order to let Luffy, Law, Kyrus, and Cavendish escape to the third level in order to reach level 4. Then we switch back to Kinemon, who has finally found Kanjuro, who was hiding in the walls of the scrap heap. After a brief reunion, Kanjuro uses his ability to create a poorly drawn sparrow to fly them out to the surface. But the other people trapped there, beg to be helped for Kanjuro to help him get out. And he makes crude ladders for them to climb out. And then we switch back to Luffy and company, who finally reach the third level and run into a group of several giant puppet soldiers blocking their path to the fourth level. Now this, episode, like I said, it's very, very simple. You have, everyone, the Coliseum fighters trying to take on Don Quixote, the minions and the executives, so that way Luffy, Long, Kyrus, and Cavendish are free to move forward. Luffy and Cavendish have to take care of a bunch of, random soldiers, but, on their way to the third level, but, that's to be expected. There's a lot of them. As for, the whole interaction with Kanjuro finally being introduced, finally, and as for Kanjuro's ability, he has the, just like with Kinemon, he believes that it's some type of sorcery or, like ninjutsu, like freaking Naruto, but it's a devil fruit power, and he has the ability to make his drawings come to life, or become truly 3D or 4-dimensional, basically, and it would be amazing if Kanjuro would be if Kanjuro was to actually be a good draw or a good artist. And I haven't mentioned this in any of my previous talkings about Kanjuro, which isn't really that much because the whole Kanjuro plot line isn't that necessarily that important at this point in time. Unless him and Kinemon and Momonosuke might become more important to the storyline if we ever get to Wano Kune. But for now, the whole Kanjuro side story was kind of like, whatever. But now that I think about it, and I think this is, Kanjuro is actually, and his abilities remind me of for those of you out there who, also read slash, watch Naruto, Kanjuro's abilities seem almost identical, or actually are completely identical to the character from Sai from Naruto, except that Kanjuro is a shitty drawer. I mean, that's pretty much what that's the other character. For those of you who don't know, Sai is a character from Naruto who's like everyone else is a ninja, and his specialty, his ninjutsu that he uses, is bringing his drawings to life. Now, in his case, he mostly does, draws dangerous beasts. He'll draw like, if he needs to travel somewhere, he might draw, like a bird, a giant bird, so he can fly on it. But it's pretty much the same ability as Kanjuro. Whereas Kanjuro, he uses that power in order to do whatever. In this episode, you see he uses his ability to create a section of the wall, so that way he can hide behind it and no one would know he was there. We also see, he uses it to create food. Like he'll draw food on the friggin', wall or something, and then use his power to bring it to life. Make it 4-dimensional and eat it. So he's not just limited to combat abilities. So I mean, the fact that there's something he has an ability, his ability is similar to, is identical to a character from another series, to me seems like a very good nod, on Oda's part. Oda's very good friends. He's a very good, Oda's great. We all know Oda's great. And the final thing, and it's always great, him and Mitsutoshi. Yeah, Mitsutoshi. I don't know. I always forget the mangaka for Naruto. All right. If I got that wrong, then tell me in the comments. But that's if you're there. But that they're good friends, and they did nod to each other when Naruto ended, and the fact that Kanjiro as a character is pretty much a nod to one of the characters from Naruto is interesting. Now the whole thing with Luffy and the rest finally getting the third level, that's great progression because we're finally okay, someone's gotten up to the third level. So in the overall progression of things, it's getting better. Hopefully, and then you have this. I mean, they call them puppet soldiers, but they look more like giant nutcrackers, in my opinion. But then, if you've seen the episode, give your own opinion in the comments below. So overall, this episode was okay. The One Piece episodes have just been. I mean, I guess you could say they've been consistent. The good thing is that they've been consistent for the most part recently. It's just that it's consistently okay. The preview for next week's episode. The preview for next week's episode showcases that we're at least going to get some. Zoro's going to use some like really powerful attack, and and I've been waiting for this particular attack because it looked awesome in the manga, and it should be great when they stretch the hell out of it in the anime. Because, as you should know, there have been several times where there's been instances, they've done taking certain moments in this arc and made them even better, such as, and I'm referring to combat wise, friggin' the best example I can think of right now is the Conqueror's Haki clash between Don Chin and Luffy. Just that fact right there tells me that also that was done very well, and it makes and if they do put that level of effort and stretching out into Zoro's attack that he's supposed to do next week, it'll be amazing. So overall, it was okay. Like I said, okay episode. Hope you guys enjoyed the review, and hope to see you guys next week.